dun 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 dun. Hello and welcome back to another episode of True Crime Metrix. We are going to be starting our Luis Rivera testimony series today. We're going to walk through the whole thing, starting with his direct examination in the joint trial of Catherine Magbanua and Sigfredo Garcia in the 2019 court trial of Dan Markel. Does anyone else get really confused with this case? Do we call it the Dan Markel case or the Catherine Magbanua case? You know, there's just so many trials. There's been 3 already. There's another one happening, later in the year. And then there's question mark trials. It's not over yet. We've already had one judge die. I mean, God rest his soul. Yeah, unbelievable. I just really hope that Ruth and Phil Markel are with us until justice is fully brought home for the Markel family and the whole gang. I mean, it would be wonderful because they're pretty old right now. Yeah, I think they're in their 80s, like Mr. Dentist Harvey. Hey, Caledonian Celt. I think they might be from Scotland. How you doing? Glad I've made it for alive. We're glad too, Caledonian. Matt, our resident Itai. Rabbit, of course. Welcome, Rabbit. Welcome, Matt. Yeah, so yet again, no time to prepare, guys. I made a thumbnail. That's it. I got back, I made a thumbnail, I put it up, and now we're live. I had a comment today from someone who said, well, this sounds really rehearsed. And I wasn't sure if they were talking about me or last night's testimony of Wendy with Daniel Rashbaum. It wasn't clear. So, yeah, Neaty. Bringing it home, baby. Welcome, Neaty. Yeah. Well, what I do is not prepared, and if someone thinks it is, I think that's bizarre because I never finish a sentence. I jump all over the place. I interrupt. Oh, and another thing. But soon enough, guys, we will have some time to prepare and to write and to come up with good ideas, notions, concepts to share with y'all. And it's going to be great. So welcome back to the team. I think we're just going to roll tape, just roll right on with the tape. Luis Rivera. What can we say about Luis Rivera? Kind of interesting and unusual situation with him, because after watching all of Wendy's testimonies in the last series we did, one thing is very clear, is that it's difficult to imagine anybody liking her for some genuine humane reason. If you want to get in her pants, or if you want to do a business deal, or if you wanted to do some crooked laundering for you, those are reasons to like someone that aren't really liking someone, are they? But and she comes across terribly on the stand in every way, even though her portrayal is of this good, virtuous woman. Everybody watching this knows that that isn't the case. Now, in dark contrast to Luis Rivera, this is a self-professed robber, violent criminal, drug lord, Latin King lord, crazy guy, you know, and I believe that character when I look at him. You know, he looks like he's hit a good few people in the head with a phone book at the very least, you know. But I'd challenge you all to find one person that side by side wouldn't say they'd rather sit down with this guy than Wendy. He comes across quite likable. And I think a lot of us are very grateful to him, Georgia Cappleman included in that, very grateful to Luis for being the linchpin of the case. Huge deal. Huge deal. Him coming forward and telling all he knows, supposedly. And yeah, I think there are strange things within his testimony, and it does change a little bit over time. We're going to be going through that and taking notes, okay? Hey, Texas. What part of Texas? Midland? Austin? Dallas? San Antone? Tell us, Matt. Tell us. Where are you from? Yeah, so enough of the intro, guys. Let's just get into the video. I think you all know what it's about, so let's not mess about. Roll tape, please. Okay.
All rise. Court is back in session.
Be seated, please. Got an issue, Mr. Cappleman?
Just wanted to bring to the court's attention that the next witness is going to be Mr. Rivera. I anticipate that he will be a lengthy witness. I'm particularly anticipating a lengthy cross, but that being said, this is the last witness that I have brought for the day, and I don't want to be in a posture where I run out, so I was looking for a little guidance from the court. Would it be okay if we end with him today, even if it's a little earlier, or would your preference be that I get some more folks up here?
I don't have any doubt that he's going to at least take up the rest of the day.
Okay, I think so
Don't need
too. I
any
just
other witnesses, right?
didn't want to get in trouble.
Is that all?
That's it.
Your Honor, before Mr. Rivera testifies, if I could make just some legal objections that I don't want to have to do in the presence of the jury.
You may.
The first objection that I'm going to have at this time is that it's our position that the state, even taking in the light most evidence to them, has failed to establish by a preponderance of the evidence of conspiracy that involves Ms. McDaniel, so that at this point we would say that any court.
The first time I saw this case and went through it, I couldn't get enough of Tara Kawas, and I still have affection for her and think that she's got some good talent. But, you know, little bits like this, what she's doing now, saying, yeah, well, I just want to make it known to the court that we don't think he should be allowed to testify because it's really damaging to our client. I mean, she just wants to make a record, but the judge is just like, all right, well, that'll be on record. You know?
Co-conspirator hearsay statements should not be admissible because the court.
Yeah, Amy Bowen. Tara is Courtney Clenny's attorney. Y'all who know who that is, right? The OnlyFans model that stabbed her boyfriend in the chest, and we saw the elevator footage where she is beating him in the ear, and he's pretty calmly blocking, putting his arm up, semi-restraining her, like not even face on. No big threat there. Just a guy trying to deal with a psycho. And yeah, apparently Tara is now representing her. So that should be good to see. I wonder where she'll go with that one. Anyway, back to the footage.
I'm sure the court is aware that the contents of the statements cannot be used in determining if there's a conspiracy. And at this point, it would be our position that they have failed to do so. That's our first objection, Your Honor. Do you want to rule before I move on to the second?
Yes.
Okay.
What?
Oh,
You
I was
said
at, do you want me to wait for you to rule before I move on to the second topic?
certainly.
The second topic, Judge, is I'm just asking, I'll do an ora tennis motion to compel in terms of if the state is aware of any change in testimony by Mr. Rivera in terms of what he's going to testify today, if they're aware of any statements that have changed, they are under an obligation under the rules of discovery to let us know before he takes the stand. So I would just ask if they are aware of any, they just let us know before he testifies. And that's the second thing, Your Honor.
Mr. Cappleman, that's the second issue.
The second issue, I'm aware of my continuing discovery obligation and my obligations under Brady, and I'm not aware of any
Okay.
new.
Just a quick word, guys. Rabbit says the judge's voice is affected by his Parkinson's disease. This was one of his last trials, if not the last. He passed away from the disease not long after this. Yeah, so just to comment on that, I was ripping on the judge's voice a bit, saying he sounded really boring, and he sounded like Adam West in Family Guy, Mayor West. And just to apologize for that, because I had no idea he had some disease. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but you know, this channel, we don't kick the sick. That's not what it's about. So we didn't know, and now that we know, we let him have his boring voice. Just kidding.
Items to disclose at this time.
Okay. And let me say to counsel, when we break, I always ask if there are any issues from you. What I want you to do is bring up issues then, so we don't have the jury sitting back there waiting on us. The idea is we'll use our time to resolve issues while the jury's taking a break. So let's try to abide by that. If you have an issue, you know who's next. Let's take it up at the end of the testimony before we take a break while the jury's having their break. Let's have Mr. Rivera in, please. Have a seat, sir. Let's have a jury, please.
All rise for the jury.
All right, everybody, but the witness have a seat, please. If you'd face the clerk, raise your right hand and be sworn, please, sir.
You swear affirm testimony about giving this case the truth, whole truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God.
Have a seat. Slide up the microphone, please, sir. May proceed, Mr. Cappleman.
It's interesting that there's no cuffs on Rivera this year. I mean, I've definitely seen him sitting in the stand in cuffs. You know, those cuffs that are on your belt as well, so you can't even move your hands up. No cuffs on him this year.
Thank you. Sir, please say your name and spell your name.
Luis Rivera.
Slide forward a little closer to that microphone, please, sir.
Luis Rivera. Liusrivera.
Can't hear you. Gotta tell me.
How old are you, Mr. Rivera?
36.
Are you currently incarcerated?
Yes, ma'am.
And where are you currently incarcerated?
Right now I'm in the feds.
With the feds?
Federal prison.
Okay. And are you serving a sentence currently for both this case and an unrelated federal case?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you plead to in this case that we're here about today?
19 years.
All right, but what charge did you plead to?
Second degree murder.
All right, 19 years in prison?
Yes, ma'am.
And you're serving that concurrent with your federal sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
How long is the federal sentence?
12 and a half.
All right. And what did you have to do in exchange for your 19-year sentence in this case?
Cooperate.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. There's somebody tampered with the button. Every time we move this thing, it pops up. So we need to not move.
And Mr. Rivera, if you could pull up just a little bit closer.
I mean, I've been having a problem with some of the other witnesses.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, say something more.
All right, Mr. Rivera, you said that you had to cooperate in exchange for the testimony.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and what does cooperate mean to you?
Say nothing but the truth.
Has anybody told you what to say?
No, ma'am.
Anybody tried to tell you what the truth is?
No, ma'am.
Anybody try to tell you any particular fact you need to include in your testimony in order to get,
Not at all.
okay, in order to get anything,
No, ma'am.
any benefit?
No, ma'am.
Did I ever have any private meetings with you before you decided to cooperate with law enforcement?
Not at all.
Did you have an attorney to represent you through the process where you cooperated and entered a plea in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Did your lawyers ever tell you what you needed to say to get a
No,
deal?
ma'am.
Were you ever told that you had to implicate a specific person in order to get cooperation in this case?
No, ma'am.
Has anyone promised you anything other than what we just discussed, the 19 years concurrent with the federal sentence?
No, ma'am.
Have you been promised anything on your federal case in exchange for your testimony here today?
Not at all.
Were you already serving a sentence on the federal case when law enforcement first came to talk to you about this case?
Yes, ma'am.
And you also have pending violations of probation out of Miami, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
For possession of a firearm by a convicted felon?
Yes, ma'am.
So you have not yet been sentenced on that?
Not at all.
And is that up to a potential 15 additional years in prison?
I believe so.
And also a possession of cocaine with intent to sell, do you have that open as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that another additional 15 years of prison that you could potentially face once you're done with all of this?
Probably.
All right. And have you been promised anything in reference to those other charges out of Miami?
Not at all.
Where were you living back in 2014?
I was in Miami. I was living with Jessica.
All right. And was Jessica at 135th Street? 135th Street
Yes,
in North
ma'am.
Miami.
Yes, ma'am.
That sound right? Do you know Sigfredo Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know Sigfredo Garcia?
Childhood, we grew up together.
And when you say that, was it like since you were what age?
Like 5, 6, around there.
Okay. Were your families close to each other?
They know each other.
Did you grow up in the same neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am.
Go to the same schools?
Yes, ma'am.
Run with the same crowd?
Yes, ma'am.
Does Mr. Garcia have any nicknames?
Just Tuto.
Tuto? What, have you ever heard the term tuto-dade?
Tuto Day.
Yeah.
Nah.
What about, let me ask you, like back around the time that this crime occurred, 2014, how often did you hang out with Mr. Garcia during that time frame?
No, we hang out pretty close every day.
All right. And you mentioned a Jessica. Who's that?
That's my ex-baby mama. Well,
Your
my
ex?
baby mama.
She's the mother of your children?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And that's who you were living with around the time of this homicide?
Yes, ma'am.
What about Catherine Magbanowa? Do you know her?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know her?
Garcia's wife.
All right. And is he legally married to her?
That I knew, yeah.
You thought he was?
Yeah, I thought he was.
Okay. And do they have children together?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And does she go by any nicknames?
Just Katie.
Katie?
Yeah, we just call her Katie.
All right. And was Catherine Magbanowa somebody around, and I'm referring to the time leading up to this homicide, say 6 months leading up to the homicide. Is that somebody that you would talk to on the phone? Catherine
Nah,
Magbanowa?
like speak to her?
Yes.
No.
Would you see her socially?
I see her because I got to see Aunt Garcia.
So when you saw her, would she always be with Garcia? Or did you have a separate relationship with her?
No, she would be with Garcia. I never had no.
Okay. I guess I'm just trying to establish, did you have a friendship with her independent of?
He misinterpreted that question, didn't he? Bless him. But talk about being real and like just being himself. He's not putting on any airs, this guy, whatsoever. It must be quite liberating, you know.
Knowing Garcia, or was she just Garcia's woman to you?
That was Garcia's woman.
Okay. How much time would you say you spent around the two of them socially, them like as a couple?
I mean, I was always around Garcia, but you know, everybody do their own thing.
Okay. Would you say you saw them socially more than 10 times in your life?
Yeah, of course.
Was the nature of Magbanua and Garcia's relationship such that they were always together, steady, or did they tend to break up and get back
They
together?
were on and off.
Do you know what their status was of their relationship at the time that Dan Markel was killed?
I don't think I knew that she was dating the dentist. That's about it.
You did not know she was dating the dentist?
No,
Or you
she
did?
was dating.
You
dating
did? Okay, so they were kind of off at that time.
Yeah, they were off.
All right. I want to show you some photographs, which I've marked as states 45 and 46. Ask if you recognize them.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you recognize states 45 and 46?
I think we were going out to the club that day.
Okay, they're just looking at some photos, but while they're doing that, I just want to comment on Mongeezy's post here, who says, the most entertaining judge to preside over a recent high-profile case is none other than Jennifer I think it was Doro, wasn't it? In the Darrell Brooks trial in Wisconsin. I wish she was presiding over Wendy's trial. That would be classic. Okay. So Jennifer Doro was very competent. I agree. And it was quite, I mean, I don't know if I'd call it entertaining. It was a shit show of a trial by Darrell Brooks. I mean, Jesus Christ. I haven't decided whether we're going to do a dive into that one yet, but maybe. So subscribe to the channel, guys. Now with the Darrell Brooks what was it? Waukesha. This was the guy that ran his red SUV over crowds of people at the Christmas parade, mostly kids and the elderly. So, killing 6, wounding like more than 100, I think. And it's amazing that he only killed 6 people. I actually found some of the footage of him hitting the marching band or something, a bunch of kids, and it was just like a bowling ball. This car was going like at least 40 to 50 miles an hour at this point. I mean, which might not sound that fast, but when it hits a load of kids, they just disappear. They're thrown in all directions. It was horrific. Yeah. So there was a lot of responsibility on the judge, and Darrell Brooks insisted on representing himself, and the responsibility on Jennifer Doro, the judge who was presiding, would be to safeguard against Darrell Brooks having any valid reason to claim on his appeal that there was I don't know, what do you call it, reason for a mistrial, and get off on a technicality. Basically, she had to safeguard against that because that was the only thing. There was all the evidence that you could possibly have against him. I mean, he was on video, everything. We'll save that for a video maybe. But yeah, I thought she came across a little bit too this guy, and it's maybe no fault of hers, but she had to be so safe with this situation. I just didn't like how much rope she gave him, and ultimately he hung himself with it in the end. But and then after the trial, she seemed to, because it was such a high profile case, she seemed to think that she could use that to run for, I think it was governor, some high up political position in Wisconsin. She went for on the back of that case, and she didn't win. And there was this bit where she was on stage with her 2 kids and her husband, and I can't remember what denomination she is, but she's heavily religious and really working hard to portray this good family woman vibe on stage with these 2 kids. But one of the kids was really, really upset about something. I don't know if they were just, frozen with the kind of being thrust into the spotlight and having a kind of panic attack or something like that. But I didn't like how she dealt with her kid in that situation. It was very like, not now, not now. We're on stage and we've got to smile now. And it was all about this winning the election, which she didn't. And it seemed like, she got a real kind of like, frankly, a bit of greed out of presiding over Darrell Brooks' case, because she seemed to really use that. And you compare that to the prosecutor. Oh, I forget her name right now. The prosecutor in Darrell Brooks, and there were 3, but the main one, she was asked on a news report, "Oh, so what's next? Are you going to go for chief prosecutor of the state or this and that?" And she said, no, look, this is my job and it's back to the books now, next case. And I really admired that over what the judge did or seemed to do, to my mind, which was, cash in on being the one presiding over such a high profile, important case for the state. So that's my thoughts on Jennifer Doro, but it was entertaining watching her. But by no means is she my favorite judge. I love Christopher Sabella down in Tampa. He's really good. And all 3 judges in this case have been fantastic. Maybe we'll do a breakdown of the top judges out there soon. So subscribe to the channel, like, share, leave a comment, ring the bell. We're so close, guys. 56 to go until our milestone, and 5/6 is today's date. May 6.
Are these photographs?
Yes, ma'am.
Who are they photographs of? Let's start with 45, this one.
Me, Jessica, Luther, and Katie.
All right, and are these fair and accurate photographs of the 4 of you?
Yeah.
Is this a photograph taken when the 4 of y'all were hanging out socially?
Yep.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce into evidence State's Exhibit 45.
Any objection?
None from the defense, none from Garcia. Judge.
All right, it'll be admitted.
Only objection, Judge, is there's no time frame that's been established for that photograph.
Do you have an idea when these were taken, Mr. Rivera?
You
Do you have
know
any
this photo?
time idea of when these photos were shown?
I can't remember. I can't remember. when we took
Sometime
them.
prior to the homicide that we're here about?
Shit. No, I don't think so.
You think it could have been after?
Probably after.
Okay.
Objection?
I'll just rest my objection on that, Your Honor. He said he doesn't know when that picture was taken.
I'll overrule the objection and admit State's Exhibit 45.
And State's Exhibit 46, what is that a photo of?
Me and Garcia?
All right, and do you know when that photo was taken?
No, not really.
Okay, is that the 2 of y'all hanging out together socially?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and are the 2 of you,
Yeah, Ryan B. That was another good one. The judge from Chandler Halderson case. We are going to be covering the Chandler Halderson case, guys. A lot to say about that and some really good interview footage. And we prefer doing the interviews over the testimony, because, you know, testimonies, they're all laid out to tell a story anyway. So I feel a bit redundant sometimes, like there's not much to comment on. Georgia's doing all the work. She should be a guest on the show. How do we make that happen?
I guess if you know, what is your height and Mr. Garcia's height?
I'm 5'4". He's like 6'1".
You're 5'4" and he's 6'1"?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that demonstrated in that photo?
Yeah,
Is that fair and accurate depiction of the difference in y'all's height?
of course. He just leaning down a little bit, but he's tall.
All right, Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce an evidence states 46.
Any objection?
Yes, Judge, he indicated he wasn't sure when that photograph was taken. He also indicated,
You have a legal objection. State your legal objection, please.
he can't authenticate it.
All right, I'll overrule the objection. Admit State's Exhibit 46. You may.
All right, Mr. Rivera, who's this on the far left?
Garcia, Katie.
Have a by now?
Yes, ma'am.
What about this one?
Jessica.
Jessica Rivera?
No, Rodriguez.
Rodriguez, I'm sorry. Is that your child?
Man, look at those ghetto girls there. Does that not look like Katie or what? I guess this is pre-breast surgery. But even in the face, you know, it's hard to tell from the quality of the picture, but I can totally recognize Garcia. I totally recognize Rivera. And I think this is the only time we get to see Jessica Rodriguez. Her time on the stand, the camera's not on her. I guess she declined, or protection maybe, I don't know.
Yes, ma'am.
Person?
Me.
This is at 46, who's that?
That's me and Garcia.
Was there a time when Mr. Garcia approached you about coming to Tallahassee?
Yes, ma'am.
And when was that?
2014.
Okay, do you know how long before the homicide it was that Mr. Garcia first approached you about coming to Tallahassee?
A few months.
All right, and what did Mr. Garcia say when he approached you about coming to Tallahassee?
He just said, I got a job. He gave me a job I got to go do.
He said he had a job,
Yes, ma'am.
and the job was in Tallahassee?
Yes, ma'am.
And did he ask you to come with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you ask any questions about what the nature of the job was, why you needed to go all the way to Tallahassee, or anything like that?
No, ma'am.
Why not?
Just as my best friend, and I trust him.
So you were automatically in to do whatever it was he wanted you to do?
Whatever you want to do over the road.
All right, was money discussed as far as how you'd be compensated for this job?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
He was gonna give me some money. He said, take a ride with me over to Tallahassee, and I'll give you some money.
Did he say how much?
At that moment, yeah, he did. 35.
All right, 35 what?
35,000.
You were gonna get $35,000 for this job?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And did you have another conversation in the car on the way to Tallahassee?
Yes, ma'am.
How many trips did you make to Tallahassee?
Like twice.
All right, and were both trips with Mr. Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
Was anybody else in the car on either of those trips?
Not at all.
All right, tell us about the conversation on the way to Tallahassee. Was this the first trip or the second trip?
This, the first trip.
All right, tell us about that.
We were just taking a ride up there. My concern, I thought we were gonna go rob him. So,
Say that again.
and my concern, I thought we were gonna go rob him.
You thought you were coming to Tallahassee to do a robbery?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you assume that, or did somebody tell you that?
No, I assumed, I'm like, it was just a job.
All right, so you knew it was a job in Tallahassee, and you assumed.
Yeah, he assumed it was just a robbery, right? $35,000, and in his mind, he was already, purchasing that Toyota Camry. Finally, the Toyota Camry will be his.
Assumed it was a robbery. Did you learn something additional about what it was on the way to Tallahassee?
Yeah, and the way coming up, like halfway there, he He said we're gonna have to kill the man for some
Said you were
kids.
gonna have to kill the man?
Yeah,
And what was the second part of what you said?
for some kids.
For some kids. All right, anything else? What did that mean to you? Kill?
I love how Georgia maintains her professional prowess, but at the same time is accepting and adapting to more Rivera's way of talking. He said you had to go and kill the man. I mean, that's not how a lawyer would speak. Is this just Garcia's woman? She's she knows what time it is.
Kill the man for some kids.
That's for a lady. I guess the lady wanted her kids back.
All right, so is this Garcia telling you this?
Yeah,
Did he have any information about who it was you were coming to Tallahassee to kill?
if you had information for who we coming to kill,
Yeah.
yeah,
What information did he have?
he had a piece of paper.
And where was the piece of paper?
He had in his hand at that moment.
Okay. Did you see the piece of paper? Did you see what was on it?
Yes, ma'am.
What was on it?
A picture of the guy what's his name?
Dan Markel,
Dan Markel.
the guy that y'all ended up.
He can't even remember his name. Oh. There's something funny and sad about that at the same time.
Killing.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what the leading judge.
Overruled.
Is that the person whose picture was on the paper?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And was there anything else on the paper other than a picture of Mr. Markel?
I think it was the address in it too.
Okay. And who was doing the driving on this first trip?
He was.
Okay. And during the time that he showed you this paper, was he behind the wheel of the car?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And do you know where the paper was stored inside the car?
It was on the side of where you drive out by the door.
Okay. Who was responsible for getting the car to go on the first trip?
He did.
Mr. Garcia?
Yeah, he brought the car.
All right. So you didn't, or did you accompany him to rent the car for the first trip?
No, ma'am.
People are saying that Lewis is very comfortable with Georgia. Well, she would have conducted a preparation of the witness. This is a key witness, and she's already gone through all these questions with him and possibly some others that she's taken out. It doesn't mean that she's told him what to say, but they've probably had at least 2 sessions together. Because you only get one shot in front of a jury, and she knows the answer to every question she's asking him because they've been through it. But that's not the same as them sitting down together and, her saying, when I ask you this, you need to say this. It's just preparation of a witness, which each side has the right to do, I believe. And, for the most part, that happens, depositions, preparations. And they are comfortable. Georgia's comfortable with him too. But I don't see that being anything nefarious.
Do you know what your phone number was at the time of this homicide?
I think it was like either 786. I think it was like 290. Can't
No,
remember.
your phone number.
My phone number?
Yeah.
Shit. Man, I had 2 phones.
If I say the phone number, would you be able to say that was correct or not?
Let me hear it, please.
305-570-8153.
Yeah.
That was one of your phone
That
numbers?
was one of my phone numbers.
And then I also have a 305-934-6615. Was that a phone number that belonged to you?
Yeah.
Okay. And was there one number in particular of those 2 that you took to Tallahassee?
I don't remember which one I took.
Did you definitely take one of them to Tallahassee?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay. I want to ask you about the first trip. Do you know the date that you came to Tallahassee on the first trip?
I can't remember, but no, I can't remember.
Okay, does June 4th through June 5th sound correct?
Yeah, it was around June. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that's of the year 2014, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so do you know, are you familiar with a ticket, a traffic ticket that y'all got in the area of Gainesville on that first trip?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 81.
Yeah, Mongeezy says that he or she, well, Mongeezy loves Grish's Wendy's TV series. Shout out to him. What do we know about the validity of the story about the hitman being seen behind the apartments behind Dan's apartment? Is that legit? Yeah, I saw that once, only once. And I love Grish's content. Fantastic the way he puts that stuff together. And yeah, I mean, we think Rivera is telling everything on the stand, but, you know, maybe we shouldn't be so easily fooled. There are some missing pieces here. And, you know, I think the defense counsels in this trial make a point of like, why did you take a gun with you up to Tallahassee? Why don't you just get one there from one of your Latin King brothers? Which absolutely, you know, I mean, they're both convicted felons. So if they get caught with a gun, it's a big deal. They're driving up to Tallahassee at 100 miles an hour, 9 o'clock in the morning in a 60 or in a 50 or something. You know, Sigfredo's got cocaine all over his chest, and they get pulled over, and the cop doesn't do anything. That's all weird. And then something about Grish's video, I can't really remember the details, but it was something about Wendy putting a bag behind the house and that there was money and a gun or something. And that's interesting. You know, I wonder if we're ever going to really feel like we know everything about this case and what happened. Another thing is this picture of an owl that Rivera took a picture of an owl and put it on Instagram with his location data. But then in another trial, he says he took a picture of a lion. You know, I mean, why does that change? Or is he just taking pictures of owls and lions and posting? You know, he's got an animal lover's Instagram, and every time he sees an animal, feathers or claws, he just needs to post it.
You recognize State's 81?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a fair and accurate copy of the traffic ticket that y'all received on this first trip to Tallahassee?
Yes, ma'am.
Right, and this was in the car that was rented by Mr. Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
Who got the ticket?
I got the ticket.
All right. Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce an evidence of 81.
Any objection?
Not at all, Judge. Mr. Garcia.
No objection.
Be admitted.
What was the ticket for?
Speeding.
Okay, and so you were doing the driving, at least in the Gainesville area, is that right?
Yeah, we had switched for a minute, and he told me to drive.
All right. Do you know what time of day you arrived in Tallahassee on that first trip on June 4th?
In the morning, like around 5, 6 o'clock in the morning around there.
Okay. And would it refresh your memory that when the traffic ticket was received?
Let me see.
I'm going to draw your attention to the top right corner of this traffic ticket. Indicates that you received a ticket at 9:12 a.m.
Yeah, Neety and Rabbit. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Neetie. The letter that Rivera sent to Georgia was, you know, I'm just remembering what it was saying, but it was like, listen, I'm in solitary and I want to be in Gen Pop, and I helped you with your Markel case, so get me out of solitary, and I don't care that there's a price on my head. I can take care of myself, and I need to get out of here. I mean, that's basically all it was. And there's nothing in it. Like, he says he helped her with the case, and he did by telling the truth, apparently. But it wasn't like he wrote in the letter, I lied for you on the stand, and now you need to do me the favor that you promised. It wasn't like that. It was like saying, I need to get out of into Gen Pop, and I testified. So, it fits.
Gainesville, Florida. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Does? When you came to Tallahassee that first time, did you have any guns with you?
Yes, ma'am.
And what guns were in the car with you on that first trip?
We had 2 guns, two
Okay.
38s.
238s?
Yes, ma'am.
And where did those guns come from?
One was his, one was mine.
One was whose?
Garcia's.
All right. And was that a gun that he acquired just for this trip or something he'd already had?
He already had it.
All right. What about the gun that was yours?
I bought it
Where did you buy it?
on the corner.
On the corner, so it was an illegal gun purchase?
Yes,
or-
ma'am.
And which one of these guns, if either of them, ended up being the murder weapon in this case?
The one that I brought.
Right, the one that you purchased on the corner?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was before the first trip to Tallahassee?
That was the first trip.
All right, so what was the purpose of the first trip?
We came to scope them out.
Okay, were you intending to commit the murder on the first trip?
It was supposed to, but we couldn't find them.
All right, so when y'all came to do the first trip, was any money exchanged?
Nah, he had money.
Who did?
Garcia.
How much money did he have?
He probably had, I think, from $2,000 to $5,000.
Between $2,000 and $5,000?
Yeah.
Okay, and did you know where he got the money from?
The money he got it from the people that hired him.
All right, and who is that? Did he tell you?
Nah, he didn't tell me that.
Okay. Did he give you any money on this first trip?
Excuse
Grish has also got a great video about the amount of money that was given to Sigfredo and Luis to go up, expenses. They got to drive 400 miles each way, buy a gun, get hotel rooms, eat. I mean, even if it's just expenses without all the drugs they bought and all the booze they bought and the fixing the car that they shot a hole in, and even just that. I mean, it's got at least $1,000. It'd be budget on $1,000, right? But yeah, that money was getting passed to them through Katie. So I think Grish's video is like saying that Katie was pocketing loads of the money that Charlie was giving them to expenses. But this is back to the bag behind the house in Tallahassee, because Charlie was giving Katie money as a test, but actually paying for the expenses through Wendy or something. Check out Grish's channel, all of you, because it's really good. And he's got some interesting arguments, and he makes them in a very compelling way. Personally, I think some of his content is like possibly just fantasy that he really works hard to make look compelling, just out of interest in the case, but he does a pretty good job of it, and it does raise some interesting questions, and he picks up on some really key inconsistencies, situations that we're all really familiar with, but because they're not really brought up in court very often, they fall through the cracks of our mind's eye. Grish just brings it back home, baby.
Excuse me?
Did he give you any money for this
Yeah,
first
give me a
trip?
couple of $100.
Okay. How many nights did you stay in Tallahassee on that first trip? If you remember.
I'll say like 2 nights,
All
2
right.
to 3 nights
Where did y'all stay?
in a hotel.
Okay. And did you interact with a man by the name of Shadrach Nobles in the hotel?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that you came here to do the murder, but you couldn't find him. What did you mean by that?
We have followed him and we
Followed who?
Markel.
All right. Where'd you follow him to?
Followed him all the way to a daycare where we kept losing him.
Okay. Where did you follow him? When you say you followed him,
Neaty, hookers who shower outside. Yeah, I think she's referring to Wendy Adelson's interview on the TV news show about her book, which is about human trafficking, and the news person, the news anchor, whatever, says, so what should we look out for? Because this is happening to people in our own country. What are the signs? What should people do? And Wendy's like, well, there are a lot of signs, and there's more people being trafficked than you think. Agricultural workers. If you see a 7-year-old who is showering outside, they're probably being trafficked. It's just the most bizarre answer. I mean, what is that? You know, it could be a hot day and they're having a water fight.
to the daycare, where did you start following him?
Like, we had stopped by a park and watched him come out of his house.
So you knew where his house was located.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you know where Mr. Markel's house was?
Garcia pointed his house to me.
Okay. Was that something that was written on the paper?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you said you pulled into a park and waited for him. Where was the park?
I was in the corner by a light.
Yeah, Mongeezy, that thing about the money on Grish's channel was confusing. And like I said, I think possibly he just comes up with bizarre theories and then really finds a way to make it fit, and spends a lot of time making those clever videos that that really make that point fit. So it's interesting and it's nice to play with, but I'm not by any means 100% sold on his ideas. But my hat's off to him for taking the time to find these ideas, and if anything, it shows us that really, we've it's so easy when you're so absorbed in this case to think you've got it all covered, to think you've been through everything 100 times, and I could recite this whole case in my sleep, the amount of time I've spent looking at it. But every so often we forget that there's certain things that just they've been left on the table. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and there's so much to work with that we forget about the stuff that we haven't really found answers for yet. And Grish is good at picking up on certain things like that, and making a point out of the things that have been left behind a bit. So I can't wait to see what he comes up with next. He's really good creator.
Show you what I marked as safety unit 47. You recognize States 47?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this a fair and accurate aerial map depicting where you parked that day waiting for Mr. Markel to follow him or scope him out?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce States 47.
Any objection?
1 second, Judge. No objection, Mr. Garcia.
No objection.
Be admitted. You may.
Mr. Rivera, does this yellow dot here indicate where you and Mr. Garcia waited?
Yes, ma'am.
And when had you already seen Mr. Markel's home before you parked here?
Yes, ma'am.
And when he pulled out, did he pull out down this road right here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, when you're talking about the light, are you talking about this intersection?
Yes.
All right, tell me where you followed him. If he came down this way, where did y'all go?
Pulled right behind him, and he went straight.
Straight down through this light?
Yes, ma'am.
And is that when you followed him to the area of the daycare?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and when you say you lost him, where and how did you lose him?
He had pulled him into the daycare. By the time we made a circle, I guess he had pulled out and left. So we can't loosen him.
All right, and when you talk about following Mr. Markel to the daycare on this first trip, who was driving when you all followed him to the daycare?
Garcia.
All right. You mentioned going by Mr. Markel's residence. Can you tell the jury exactly what kind of scoping out y'all did of Mr. Markel's residence on this trip?
Just driving through to see if we see his car, to see if there was somebody in the house. But we never got to see his car.
Did you ever pull around behind the house or go anywhere?
Hey, Needy, how did the cops find Wendy so quick? I really think it could have been as simple as they said, okay, who's Markel's ex-wife? Wendy. Okay, where does Wendy work? Florida State University. Okay, phone her. Oh, her secretary is the only one there? Okay, ask her secretary where she is now. What's on her calendar? Oh, she's got a lunch date at Mosaic. I mean, it could be that simple.
Besides other than driving right in front?
Yeah, we went around the house.
Okay. Did you get out of the car?
No, ma'am.
Did Mr. Garcia get out of the car?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that.
He got off, went behind the house, tried to see if somebody was in the house.
Who was supposed to be the shooter on this first trip?
I was going to be the shooter.
Did you make a suggestion to change the plan from shooting to something else?
Yeah, if I know for the kids, I ain't going to shoot nobody in front of no kids.
All right. When you saw Mr. Markel on the first trip, did he have his kids with him?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Why didn't the murder get done on the first trip? Is it because?
We lost him.
Okay. Did you ever observe Mr. Markel on the first trip where he was, I guess, separated from his children?
Excuse me?
Did you ever see him where he was in his car in his home and the kids were not around that first trip?
Nah, he always had his kids.
Did y'all discuss plans to, I guess y'all went back to Miami, correct? After
Yes,
the
ma'am.
failed first trip. And was there any plans discussed about when to come back?
No, ma'am.
All right, what about between the two trips? Was there conversation about the homicide or coming back to Tallahassee?
Excuse me, what two trips? The two trips?
Between the two trips, did y'all talk about when you're gonna come back, or
No, when we left that first night, we left. We didn't talk about it.
you did or did not?
Did not.
Okay. How did it come about that y'all came back?
He ended up calling me, he said, you got to do the job. We got to finish that job.
Okay. And did y'all return to Tallahassee on July 16th, 2014?
Yes, ma'am.
And how did you get to Tallahassee that time?
We rented a car.
Who rented the car?
I did.
All right. I'm going to show you what's been introduced into evidence of States 82. Have you seen this exhibit before?
Yes, ma'am.
This the rental agreement that you, where you rented this car?
Yes, ma'am.
It's a green Prius, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Which phone number is this up here listed as brother? You know?
Can't remember.
786-372-5986.
I can't remember.
Who went with you to rent the Prius?
Well, it was me and Garcia. He waited for me in the corner. I went in, gave him $300. I rented the car.
Okay. Did you refer to Mr. Garcia as your brother?
Always.
Who drove to Tallahassee in the green Prius?
I did.
Ryan B says it's insane to think that a hit was put out on a man while he has his kids in custody, especially given that you don't even know who the shooter is. Unbelievable. Yeah, isn't it? And you know what's even more unbelievable is that as Rivera was just standing there saying, I ain't going to shoot anybody in front of no kids, you know, that was his decision. He didn't say, hey, look, the people that hired me said if he's got his kids with him, it's a no-go because something could go wrong and they could get hurt. Or even if they don't, we don't want the kids to witness their father having his brains spilt all over the sidewalk. You know, no mention of that. Didn't happen, right? It wasn't part of the order. Hey, make sure you don't kill the kids. And if he's got the kids with him, don't pull the trigger. No, that was his principles. Luis Rivera said to himself, like he wouldn't rob a house of drug dealers if there were kids inside, he says on another occasion. It's him. The biggest thug in the story is the guy with the most morals. You see, this case just flips everything on its head. You know, everybody likes Luis Rivera more than Wendy Adelson. Fact.
Where did y'all stay in Tallahassee on the second trip?
Same hotel.
Okay, I'm going to show you what I've marked as States Exhibit 83. Recognize States 83?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, is that the receipt from, I think this one is, it shows an arrival date of July 16th. Is that your information?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that a fair and accurate copy of what you filled out to register in the hotel here in Tallahassee?
Yes.
All right, Judge, at this time, I'd ask to move into evidence States Exhibit 83, which is accompanied by a certification or declaration of authenticity by the folks at the Budget Inn.
Budget in.
Yes, sir.
Is there objection?
Just to confirm, this is on the July 16th, 2014, that's this one, correct?
Correct.
Okay, no objection from Mr. Garcia.
No objection.
Be admitted. You may.
You arrived on July 16th, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
This is your name and address, so forth.
Yes, ma'am.
What about this phone number? There's another phone number on here. You know who that belongs to? Is that a real phone number?
I don't think so.
You don't think
It's
so?
not a real phone number at all.
I want to talk about Thursday, July 17th. So you came, you spent the night at the Budget Inn, you woke up on Thursday, July 17th. What happened that day?
Woke up, took a ride towards Markel's house. It's that Thursday morning. And went around the house. So we went around the house, we came back around, and we seen a lady walking through.
Mm-hmm. Where was the lady?
She was towards my right-hand side towards his house. Markel's
Towards
house.
whose house? Towards Markel's house?
Mhm.
Okay, was she in the street, on the sidewalk, or something
Sidewalk.
else? Okay. Did she have children with her?
Yes, ma'am, two.
All right, what happened when you saw this lady? Did she see you?
Yeah, she looked dead at the car. I was driving and as I looked in my rear mirror, I seen her looking.
Mm-hmm.
So
What happened next?
I asked Garcia.
We got to pause it right there because we got to go back a couple of seconds. But I just want to comment on Mongeezy's post here, who says, a lot has been made of Katie saying, I know, in response to the hitman calling her to tell her it was done. I always thought that could have simply been an offhand remark unless GC knows otherwise. I don't think it was an offhand remark like an assumption. I think she knew. But here's the thing. We can assume, if we assume, that that call was made quite soon after the hit. As far as the news traveling from Tallahassee to South Florida, that happened right towards the end of Wendy's 6-hour interview, around 7 in the evening, I think, on the 18th of July. And Wendy told her mother, and then told her mother to tell Charlie, who was sat with Katie. Or maybe she wasn't there at that time, but, was in communication with Katie. So if Sigfredo called Katie soon after the murder, that call would have been before Wendy phoned Donna and asked Donna to tell Charlie, right? So if Katie knew, it didn't travel like that. So I think when Wendy drove to the scene, there was some signal that she gave somehow that traveled back to Charlie. Maybe she phoned Charlie and said, hey, we're buying a new TV, or, we're going to get a 56-inch, and 56-inch was the code for it's done. By the way, we only need another 56 subscribers, guys, to make sure you ring that bell.
So with this lady, was she looking at the car? Yeah, that's that lady with the kids, man.
So you asked Garcia, hey,
Oh yeah,
who's this lady?
we need to go back a couple of seconds because this is big. This is another kind of unanswered question where there hasn't really been too much digging in trial from anybody. Georgia's brought it up to Wendy. Could that have been you walking on Trescott with the boys? I mean, it clearly was. He clearly saw her, and Wendy looked back at the car like, there they are. That's the hitman, for knowledge that it was in motion, right? That's what I believe. But why? Why? So let's see what we can pick up here.
Lady, did she see you?
Yeah.
You know.
We came back around and we seen a lady walking around the house Thursday morning. And we went around the house. So we went around the house, we came back around and we seen a lady walking through.
Mm-hmm. Where was the lady?
She was towards my right-hand side, towards his house. Markel's
Towards
house.
whose house? Towards Markel's house?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was she in the street, on the sidewalk, or something
Sidewalk.
else? Okay. Did she have children with her?
Yes, ma'am, two.
All right. What happened when you saw this lady? Did she see you?
Yeah, she looked dead at the car.
She should have asked two boys.
I was driving and as I looked in my rear mirror, I seen her looking.
Mm-hmm.
So
What happened next?
I asked Garcia, so with this lady, was she looking at the car? Yeah, that's that lady with the kids, man.
So you asked Garcia, hey, who's this lady that's looking at the car?
Yes, ma'am.
And he said, that's the lady with the kids.
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you take that to mean?
That's the lady that wanted the kids.
The lady that wanted you to do this job?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And were you worried about seeing her there?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you worried about her seeing you there?
Of course.
Were you concerned? Did you ever ask Garcia, who knows that I'm involved in this job with you?
I can't remember.
Can't remember that?
No.
Okay. What did you do once you see this lady and Garcia tells you that's the lady that wants this job done?
We drove off. We left.
Okay. Did Garcia make a phone call about seeing the lady?
Well, I'm looking to the rearview mirror, and I seen her making a phone call. I seen
Okay.
her getting on the phone.
The lady that you saw on the sidewalk?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then y'all drove off?
We drove off.
Okay. And did Mr. Garcia, after seeing that and driving off, did he make any phone calls?
After we done bent like the corner, he got on the phone.
All right. And who did he get on the phone with?
I believe he got on the phone with Katie.
How do you know it was Katie he got on the phone with?
Because she, like, the way he was talking, it's only her. He only talks to her.
All right. And what do you mean the way he was talking? How are you able to tell?
Like, when he spoke to her, she like, y'all get out of there. The lady just seen y'all.
All right. And so y'all were worried about this lady having seen you?
Oh, I was worried.
You were?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And were you able, you said that you believe Garcia called Katie. Could you actually hear her, or you could only hear his end of the conversation?
I'm hearing his end of the conversation right
All
now.
right. And tell us about his end of the conversation. What did you hear?
He's like, we just gotta go. Like, let's get out of here.
Okay. Did you learn anything about Mr. Markel planning to leave town?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
We had to get the job done because he was supposed to leave that Friday morning.
How did you know that?
Garcia told him.
And how did he know that?
Katie told him.
And when Katie told him that, was that something that happened while you were present or something that he already knew before y'all arrived there?
No, I was present. I was in the car.
Okay. Did you post a picture on Instagram while y'all were in Tallahassee on that second trip?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell the jury about that?
There was a picture of an owl.
An owl, like the bird?
Yeah.
Okay. And was that a photograph that you took here in Tallahassee?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. What happened after you posted this picture of an owl on Instagram?
Garcia came and told me, hey, you need to take that shit down. Just like that.
Garcia told you that?
Yes, ma'am.
And who told him that?
I believe Katie.
You believe Katie or you know Katie?
It's Katie. It's her.
Okay. So did Garcia get a phone call about the Instagram photo that you posted?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you present when he received that phone call?
I was outside. He came outside and told me.
He came outside and told you to take it down?
Yeah.
All right. And did you all have contact with that same gentleman that y'all saw the first trip, Shadrack Nobles? Did y'all see him on the second trip?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Could you tell the jury about the circumstances?
And did Shadrack Nobles like the picture of an owl? I mean, this thing about the owl picture is, it's just pure comedy, isn't it? I mean, what the fuck? Big tough gangster sees an owl and is just overcome with enthusiasm. You know, wow! Look at that owl! You know, takes a picture, logs into Instagram, puts it up with this location. Crazy.
Circumstances of coming into contact with Mr. Nobles on the second trip?
Buying drugs.
All right. And was there an issue with your car as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell the jury about the issue with the car?
There was an issue in the car. I was driving, and Garcia pulled a gun out and shot a hole right through the car.
All right. What gun did he shoot the car with?
Do you have any idea how loud that would have been? I mean, I'm surprised they didn't, like, deafen themselves. I mean, you know, imagine if he'd have shot himself in the leg. You know what I mean? Fuck. What is wrong with these guys? I mean, talk about it's like sending Cheech and Chong to do a hit. That's exactly what would happen in a Cheech and Chong movie. They take a picture of an owl, and then one of them blows a hole in the Prius. And they'd be in a Prius.
The homicide one. The 38.
The murder
The
weapon,
murder weapon.
the gun that you bought on the street corner.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and I assume that was an accidental shooting of the car?
Yeah, it was an accident.
Where did this occur? Were y'all in the parking lot or somewhere else?
And I was driving,
All right, did it disable the vehicle?
of course.
All right, so what did y'all do as a result of the vehicle being disabled? And this is the green Prius, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead and tell us what y'all did.
Well, the car had stopped because he hit the gas line. So, pushed it right to the side of the road, so like a little parking lot. He left with Cedric to the AutoZone and got a little piece of hose to come fix it up. It only took him like about 10 minutes to fix it.
So Garcia got a ride with Mr. Nobles?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and who fixed the car?
Garcia,
All right, was he able to do that with whatever he bought at the auto parts store?
of course.
And then it ran again after that?
Yes, ma'am.
And did Mr. Nobles assist y'all with getting a hotel room that second night in Tallahassee?
Yes.
All right, I want to talk about what happened on July 18th, 2014. Who was driving the green Prius that day?
I was.
Where did y'all go when you left the hotel?
To Markel's house.
Hey, Udi.
All right, and was Mr. Markel, was his vehicle there?
That's that Friday.
Yes, sir.
His vehicle, we had pulled, but we passed by. We didn't see it, so we went to the corner, the same spot of that park. We posted up and waited for him to come around. So once I seen him, we followed him
Where did you follow him?
all the way to the daycare.
All right. And did you see him drop his children off at the daycare?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you continue to follow him?
Yes, ma'am.
Where did you follow him from the daycare?
To the gym.
All right. And are you still driving at this
I'm
point?
still driving.
And Mr. Garcia is the passenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you continue to use your cell phones once you got into the area of Premier Gym?
No, I think the cell phone was off. I can't remember.
Okay. You don't remember whether you turned your phone off or not?
Yeah, I can't remember if it was on or off.
Okay. Have you seen the Premier Gym video?
I seen the gym.
And you saw the images of that green Prius circling around while Mr. Markel was working out in the gym?
Yeah.
And was that you in that vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened once Mr. Markel came?
Here's another thing. While Sigfredo and Luis were waiting at the Premier Gym, Premier Fitness Gym, for like an hour while Markel is in the gym, they're sitting in the parking lot, which is just full of security cameras. And Sigfredo gets out of the car to go and piss against a tree in this nice gym parking lot. You know, you'd think that might catch someone's attention. I mean, you can see him pissing on the footage. You know, I mean, I'd go so far as to say, especially in the States, you might get away with that shit in England, but in the States, you're going to have the manager come out and say, "What are you doing pissing in the parking lot, man?"
Came out of the gym?
We followed him all the way back to his house.
And have you seen the images that were on the bus cameras?
If I seen the images,
Yeah, the video from the bus cameras.
yeah, I seen them.
All right. And is that y'all both before and right after the murder of Mr. Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Did, on the way to the murder, I see only your car, the Prius, turning onto Benton Road. I do not see Mr. Markel's. Why is that?
We went the other. He went one way and went the other way.
And what do you mean by that? He turned before you or after you?
He turned before me.
Okay. So he turned to get to his house another way and you turned on Benton.
Yes, the corner of his house.
Okay. That corner right there by the park?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And so when you were approaching Mr. Markel's residence, was he coming from the other direction?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened once the two of y'all were headed toward each other?
He pulled in, and I pulled right behind him,
How close did you get up behind him?
real close.
All right. And what was Mr. Markel doing when you pulled up behind him?
He was on the phone.
All right. Still seated in the driver's seat of his vehicle?
Yes, ma'am.
And what happened once you pulled into his driveway?
Soon as I pulled in, Garcia jumped out the car and went around. Not around, but in front of the car,
Mm-hmm.
right behind his car, and in front of the car I was driving. Went to the driver's side and shot him.
He shot Mr. Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Leslie, when I grow up, I want to be just like Georgia, you know?
How many times?
Twice,
Did you actually see Mr. Garcia shoot Mr. Markel?
of course.
Were the shots close together?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you describe Mr. Garcia's shooting position, like how he was holding the gun?
One hand.
All right. Was it raised up or was it like a normal arm, pretty straight shooting position?
Raised up pretty straight.
Okay. And did Mr. Garcia, did you observe him touch anything did he have to go inside the garage to kill Mr. Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you see him touch anything inside the garage?
No, ma'am.
All right. And when he shot Mr. Markel, can you tell the jury anything about how close the gun was to Mr. Markel?
Pretty close.
Okay. Would you say inches, feet?
Just inches away.
All right. Did you see Mr. Garcia go inside the house at all?
Not at all.
Did he take anything from Mr.
No.
Markel other than his life?
No, ma'am.
What did y'all do once Mr. Garcia shot Mr. Markel?
Got in the car and left.
And who was driving?
Me.
All right. Which way did y'all go?
The same way we came in.
All right. Up Thomasville Road?
Just they by the corner of the park.
Okay. So you turned at the corner by the park?
Yeah.
And then did you turn at the light?
Yes. Made a right and just left.
All right. Did y'all get on the interstate and head back to Miami?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you see the person in the courtroom who shot Mr. Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you please point that person out and describe what he's wearing?
Garcia is wearing tux.
A tux?
Yeah.
What color is the shirt?
Blue.
Let the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant Garcia.
Yeah, Mongizi, Wendy and her owl t-shirt. But then, you know, there's some photographs of Junam Chinder online from when she was working at Hooters. And of course, on the Hooters t-shirts, there is also an owl. It's just nuts, this case sometimes. Weird stuff like that, you know. Weird stuff like that alongside really easily understandable facts, and then mystery facts, and then obvious lies next to lies that could be true, but there's too many of them, so that makes it impossible. It's got so many different levels or areas that just go into this like soup.
On the bus video that we talked about a little earlier, in the moments after the homicide, there's some like animated movement that's seen in the passenger side of the Prius. Can you tell us what that was? What was happening at that time?
Oh, he's just trying to hide the gun.
Who was?
Garcia.
Where was he trying to hide the gun?
Right in front of the passenger side.
Okay. And what was Mr. Garcia's demeanor like? What was he acting like when he got back in the car after killing Mr. Markel?
He was nervous.
What happened to the murder weapon in this case?
We dumped it
Where did y'all dump it?
in the lake.
All right, what lake?
And a bridge, ain't no telling. And one of them bridges.
All right, was it on the way between
On the way-
Tallahassee and Miami?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to say exactly which bridge it was?
I can't remember.
But the gun was thrown into a body of water?
Yes, ma'am.
And who threw the gun into the body of water?
Garcia.
Did you ride around with law enforcement much later looking for this location?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Have you seen the ATM images in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Safety Exhibit 42. You seen this before?
Yes, ma'am.
What's that?
That's me.
What's that?
Garcia.
What car is it?
The Prius.
The day of the homicide?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, sorry, clueless beekeeping. I was eating I don't even know what to call it. It's like a really dry biscuit bread thing. But I'm done now.
Sir?
Yes, ma'am.
What were you doing at the ATM?
I was just getting money out.
Why did you need to get money out if you got a couple $100 already for the murder?
We got ran out.
Y'all had run out of money by then?
Yeah.
Do you know which one of you had the first phone call once the murder occurred, you or Mr. Garcia?
Garcia.
And do you know when that phone call was made or where y'all were when the phone call was made?
We was driving back to Miami.
All right. And who was the first phone call? Did he receive a phone call or he made a phone call?
Shit.
If you know.
I can't remember right there.
And who was the first phone call with?
Katie.
All right. So Garcia either called Katie or got a call from Katie. And that was the first call that either of y'all made after the murder.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And how do you know that that call was to Katie?
Because when he was speaking, he like, hey, the shit is done. She goes, I already know it's done.
All right. And when she said, I already know it's done, was that something that you heard or that Garcia told you?
I heard.
How were you able to hear it?
Because I'm in the car with him. The windows
right.
are up and she's on the phone.
So her voice was loud enough through the receiver that you were
Yes,
able to
ma'am.
hear her. And could you identify her voice as being hers and not somebody else's?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So tell us again what exactly was said.
He said, we already finished. He goes, I already know it's done.
All right. And then what?
And then we asked for the money, like, where the money at? So you'll get it tomorrow.
Who said you'll get it tomorrow?
Katie.
Who was responsible for getting the money?
I believe Katie.
All right. And you said, why do you say you believe Katie? Was it Katie or not?
Yes, it was Katie.
All right. And did you know where she was going to get the money from?
If I knew, not really, but we know the lady, Wendy, was paying it.
All right. So you knew that the job was being done so that Wendy could get her kids.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go with Katie to get the money?
No, ma'am.
All right. And when Katie said you'll get the money, what exactly did she say? I'm not sure you said
They'll
that
get the
yet.
money tomorrow.
You'll get the money tomorrow. And was that okay with you?
Not really. I mean, now the job is done. We should get the money today.
All right. Did y'all go back and forth about that a little bit?
Not at all.
All right. So she's going to get the money and you were going to get it tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am.
And did you get the money the next day?
Yes, ma'am.
That's going to be Saturday, the 19th.
Hey, clueless beekeeping. Okay, so maybe it's my dog snoring. What are we going to do? Kill the dog. Hey, Soap. Soap. What are you doing, Soap? There's people on the stream and you're bothering them. Again. Selfish dog. Okay, stretch. Stretch and back to sleep. But very, very soft and very quiet.
Yes, ma'am.
July 19th, 2014.
Yes.
Your financial records indicate that you went to Big Daddy's the night of the murder. Is that a place in Miami?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of place is that?
Big Daddy, you got a bar and then you got a Flanagan's right next to it.
Okay. Is Flanagan's also a bar or is that something else?
It's together.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bar. It's a sport bar.
Is that a place that you hung out regularly?
Not really.
Okay. But you went there that night?
Yes, ma'am.
And what about Mr. Garcia? Did he go there with you?
Yes, ma'am.
Did y'all spend some money that night?
Yes.
Were y'all celebrating?
You can't call it celebrating, but yeah, we spent some money.
All right, but you hadn't been paid yet.
No, not at all.
Okay. Okay, but you were anticipating getting some money the next day.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know how much Mr. Garcia was getting paid for his role in this murder?
40 grand.
40 grand, and that's what he told you?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know how much Katie was getting for her role in this murder?
The rest,
The rest of what?
the money,
How much money was it total?
100 grand.
100 grand?
Yes, ma'am.
That's how much.
Yeah, Mary and Leslie. Katie is loud. I can't wait to go through some of her calls with Charlie about when they're arguing about calling the bump, and Charlie's like, call the number. Trust me on this. Or we're gonna go to the cops, or you go to the cops, or she's like, get the fucking number. I call the number. It's hilarious. I mean, how does she do it? She's a tiny person, but so loud.
Much the job was?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you learn that?
I asked Garcia, he's giving me 35 and he's getting 40. I said, how much is in total? He said 100. Katie get the rest.
All right. So you said that you got paid the next day. Tell us about that.
I was in a barbershop the next morning. I get a phone call from Katie. Hey, where's Tuto? Where's Tuto?
And Tuto is Mr. Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So Katie, you talked to Katie on the phone that day.
Yes, I did.
And that was pretty unusual because y'all don't usually talk on the phone, right?
Yes, ma'am. We don't.
All right. And she says, where's Tuto? Did you know where Tuto was?
Objection leading.
Yes.
Overruled.
And where was Tuto?
And Shrimp's house.
And who's Shrimp?
His girlfriend.
Okay, so that's a woman that he was seeing around that time?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and what did she say? Did she say anything about the money?
Yeah, she said, who's going to come get this money? I said, he is. You go get it.
All right, so she wanted to know who was going to come get the money.
Yes, ma'am.
And were you able to locate Mr. Garcia?
Of course.
And did y'all go get the money?
I didn't go get it. He went and
The dog is a chocolate lab called Soap.
get it.
You didn't get your money?
I was in a barbershop still. They brought the money to my house.
Okay, and did you go to your house to get the money?
Yes, ma'am.
Who was present when you went to your house and got your money?
Garcia and Katie.
All right, and is that the house that we talked about earlier that you lived out with Jessica?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you leave the barber shop, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And go to your house?
Yes.
Who gave you the money?
Garcia.
All right, and Catherine Magbana was present as well?
She was there.
All right, and tell us about the money. How was it packaged?
It was in a brown bag,
Okay. Like a brown paper bag or a plastic?
a brown paper bag.
All right, and what about inside the brown paper bag?
It was like a little clear plastic, a plastic bag inside of it as well.
All right, and what was inside the clear plastic bag?
Money, hundreds.
All hundreds?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you count the money?
No,
Hey, Georgia, it's not hundreds, it's hundreds. All hundreds?
How do you know how much was there?
because I trust him.
All right, so you were told it was 35,000.
Yes, ma'am.
And did it seem like about that much to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you said it was all hundreds. Were they separated at all into stacks?
They were stapled,
Stapled.
$1,000 staple each one of them.
So stacks of hundreds stapled together with like a stapler?
Yeah, with a stapler, not all of them together, but $1,000 each was stapled.
Okay. So you had a bunch of stacks of $100 bills that were stapled into stacks of 1,000.
Yes, ma'am.
Who is Anthony Ortiz?
That's one of my friends.
All right. Is that a person that,
Yeah, this Anthony Ortiz that's conveniently dead now, possible major part of the story. Possibly went up on the other trip, the third trip with Sigfredo, What, he died in a motorcycle accident or something? I mean, that's tough.
would know how to find you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And did Catherine Magbanoa know Anthony Ortiz?
Yeah.
And do you know his number, or if I say his number, would you be able to say yes or no that that's his number?
Yeah.
305-762-0648.
That's his number.
064.
Did you get any additional money for this murder other than the money that you got in that brown paper bag?
Yeah, he gave me an extra $2,000.
Who did?
Garcia
When was that?
in the car.
Yeah, Clinton stuff, Leslie B. Another dead person, just like the host of the Stock the Bar party. People are dropping like flies all around this case. I mean, another thing that kind of lends itself to the occult vibe, 3303. Everyone's a friggin' Greek myth or a witch or, legend or something. This case is incredible. It just doesn't stop. I've got some really interesting, like, metaphysical stuff to introduce to y'all just as soon as I find the time. I got to cut together some vids. It's coming out soon, though. Coming out soon. But yeah, this case is mind-blowing, and not just because of the tragedy and the lies and the justice and all the that sort of stuff is pretty much in every trial. But this case just has something else.
You say in the car, was that the same day that you got the 35 grand?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware of any purchases that Mr. Garcia made with his portion of the money from this murder?
Yes, ma'am.
And what purchases were those?
We just bought some toys,
Like what?
like cars, motorcycles.
What about you? Buying toys?
We just bought some toys. I'd love it if he went on to say, yeah, I got a yo-yo, the kind that lights up when you yo-yo it. And Garcia got the game Operation, where you have to get the tweezers and pull out the organs, and if you touch the sides, it buzzes. We would play that all day. And
Yeah, I bought a motorcycle.
I'm going to approach with State's Exhibits 48 and 49. Let's start with 48. Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you recognize it?
Let's go see his motorcycle and the Monte Carlo is his.
All right. Is this a fair and accurate photo of the toys that he bought with the proceeds of this murder?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce State's 48.
yeah, Rabbit, are we getting sidetracked into the Illuminati vortex of the case? I mean, talk owls. You guys have got owls on your money. What is it, the $100 bill or the $1 bill? And then the whole Bohemian Grove thing with, don't they set fire to an owl? A giant, what do you call it? Epitaph of an owl? Crazy.
Any objection?
Judge, if I may,
Woo!
It's number 4. Pictures of the letters.
I'm gonna object this to authentication. Mr.
I'll overrule that.
This is Mr. Bear, 064.
No objection.
You may.
27.
There's a couple motorcycles in this photo. Did Mr. Garcia purchase both of those with the money?
Nah, just one.
Which one?
The yellow one. Yellow and black one.
This one in the front?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And what about this vehicle back here? Did you purchase that with money from her?
Yes, ma'am.
What do people think of the Monte Carlo? I quite like it.
Atera is the IT painkiller. Remote monitoring and management, remote access, help desk and ticketing.
State's Exhibit 49, do you recognize that?
Yes, ma'am.
What does that show?
Me and Garcia on the motorcycles.
All right, are those the motorcycles y'all bought with the money from killing Mr. Markel?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to move into evidence State's 49.
Any objection?
No objection.
There'll be admitted. 49 will be admitted.
Do you know what Catherine Magbanua did with her cut of the money?
Not really.
Did you dump your phone, the phone that you took to Tallahassee? Did you dump that phone after the murder?
Nah, I think I just changed the number.
Change the number? And did you change the number because it might have been associated with a homicide?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened to the Prius?
Well, we turned it back. The
Who
Prius-
turned it back in?
I turned it back in.
And was it turned in on time?
No.
Tell us about that.
Well, Garcia used it at night. We went out. He took the Prius, parked it somewhere around the house. He said he lost it. He said he didn't know where he put it at. So I had to go over there and look for it. Found it like a block and a half away from where he lived at in Miami
Alright.
Beach.
Miami Beach?
Yeah.
And so the Prius was a few days late, right?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with a wire intercept, a T3 wire intercept that was done in reference to this case?
Not really.
Have you had an opportunity to review some recorded calls that were captured on a disc?
I heard it from one of my homegirls.
Say that again?
I heard it before.
Okay, did you remember coming and listening with Investigator Newland to some phone calls and initialing whether or not you knew who the voices were on those calls?
Detective who? Newman?
Newland, Investigator Jason Newland. Did you meet with him?
Yeah, I met with him.
Okay, and did he play some phone calls for you? And the gist of that was asking you, can you recognize the voices on
Yes.
these calls? You remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to approach with State's Exhibit 138.
We haven't seen this.
One moment, please, Your Honor.
All right, jury needs to take a break. We'll take 10 minutes.
Oh, they're taking a break, guys. I thought that was the whole vid today. Well, I guess we'll soldier on. We've got to get through this direct examination sometime.
Let everybody be seated, please. You may proceed, Ms. Cappleman.
Rivera, when we broke, I was asking you whether you recalled having a meeting where you listened to some phone calls, recorded phone calls from this case to identify the voices. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to approach with what I've marked as State 179. Do you recognize this sheet?
Yes, ma'am.
And is this your initial here?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and what about these check marks? What do these check marks indicate?
The voices.
All right, so on each of these letter phone calls, were you able to authenticate the voices that are highlighted?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so for example, on call D, you were asked to listen to
Objection,
see if
Your
that's,
Honor. She doesn't move this into evidence, yes, and she's.
Overruled. Overruled.
So for example, on call D, you were asked to identify the voice of, there's two voices on there, and you were asked to identify the one that's highlighted, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And does the check mark indicate that you were able to identify the
Yes, ma'am.
highlighted voice? Okay. And on these calls, such as call.
Just a fun fact on the Priuses, guys. Brian Boone, ex-husband of Sarah Boone, who's got her trial coming up on the 13th of May, next Monday, which we'll be covering. He owns a Prius. He pulled up to the murder scene. I mean, you know, because she called him, or the dead scene, in a Prius. And the cops are laughing at him. They're saying, "You win any races in street races in that thing?" Oh.
Okay, there are two names highlighted there, Katie and Garcia. Does the check mark indicate you were able to authenticate both of those voices?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and the ones that have check marks by Katie, is that referencing Catherine Magbanua?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that was her voice on the call?
Yes, ma'am.
And the ones that have Garcia, that's referencing Sigfredo Garcia's voice?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and all the check marks indicate that you have authenticated those voices on those particular calls?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge, at this time, I'd ask to introduce case 179.
Is there objection?
Yes, Your Honor. First, I've never been shown what Ms. Cappleman is referring to, and I, if you want to go.
Wendy Adelson Voodoo Dolls. I've just had a breakthrough.
Sidebar, I'll make my other objections. Improper foundation.
Look, we're going to sidebar.
This AI tool will take your idea and create a complete book, complete with design, images, layout, everything, including.
Mr. Rivera, I don't think I asked you, what is your nickname if you have one?
Tato.
Tato?
Yeah.
All right. And I want to take you back for a
Yeah, I was named after the song Potato Potato.
moment to the first trip to Tallahassee. Did Mr. Garcia engage in any phone calls with Ms. Magbanua during that first trip to Tallahassee?
Can't remember.
Do you remember giving a proffer in this case on October 4th, 2016?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you remember giving some statements about Garcia having a lot of phone contact with Ms. Magbanua on that first trip?
Sustained.
I'm going to approach and show you the transcript of that offer. Ask you to read the question and answer. Are you able to read very
No,
well, Mr.
can't
Rivera?
read, can't write.
Right. Judge, I'll ask for some guidance on that.
I don't
Sorry,
give
I don't-
guidance. I don't give guidance, Ms.
Okay,
Cappleman.
well, the question is, right, how do you know that?
I'm going to object to this. You have me in front.
Sustained.
All right,
Move on, Ms. Cappleman.
yes, sir. Do you have any recollection of any conversation, overhearing any conversation in which Ms. Magbanua was concerned about you and Mr. Garcia doing something stupid or messing it up?
Can't remember.
Okay. Do you remember any conversation that you were privy to where Mr. Garcia was telling Ms. Magbanua to make sure those people have the money?
Yeah.
When was that?
That was Friday after the murder happened.
Okay. Were there other conversations that happened on the first trip where the money was discussed?
No.
You don't remember Mr. Garcia telling Ms. Magbanua that they better have the money?
No, I don't remember.
Okay.
Slide forward a little bit more. I think you've got it backed up a little bit.
Way in the mic.
Do you remember any conversation where Ms. Magbanua was indicating to Mr. Garcia where you could hear her saying, make sure you get everything done right. When you are done, call me.
Yes.
When was that?
That was the second trip. We was finna murder the guy.
Okay. And were you a member of this conspiracy to accomplish the murder of Mr. Markel?
Not at all.
You didn't have anything to do with it?
I mean, and yeah, he told me about it to go, but if you're saying if I got hired, no.
Well, you got paid, didn't you?
Yeah, from Garcia.
All right, so Garcia hired you to do a murder, didn't he?
Yes, ma'am.
And who hired him?
The Addison family.
I'm sorry?
The Wendy family.
Wendy's family hired him?
Yeah.
Okay, and how was Wendy's family connected to Sigfredo Garcia?
Because Katie was dating the dentist.
Okay, did Katie know about the murder?
Yes, ma'am.
Did Katie have a role in hiring Sigfredo Garcia?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know that?
Because he told me.
And Katie got paid?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection at the meeting.
Sustained.
Do you know which member of the Adelson family? Do you know? Did you have any contact with any
No,
member of
ma'am.
the Adelson family? Did any member of the Adelson family ever pay you any money?
No, ma'am.
Did you ever have any phone calls with any member of the Adelson?
No, ma'am.
Text messages?
Nope.
Meetings?
No.
Any other type of communication?
Not at all.
Do you see the person in the courtroom that you say hired Sigfredo Garcia to do this homicide?
The only one seen is Katie.
All right, would you please point her out and describe what she's wearing?
She's wearing gray and black.
Let the record reflect the witness has
Ms. Cappleman,
identified.
Would you put your hand down, please, Ms.
The
Cappleman?
witness
It
has
makes it hard to hear you.
identified. Sir?
Makes it hard to hear you when you've got your hand up around
Yes,
your
sir.
mouth.
The witness has identified defendant Magbanua. No further questions.
Cross.
Give me a second to set up, Your Honor.
Certainly.
If I may proceed, Judge.
You may.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Rivera.
Good afternoon.
Do you have any aliases other than your?
I think we're going to leave it there, guys. I want to do the people got a bit lost in the trying to find part 1 or part 2 yesterday with the Wendy Adelson series. So I'm going to try and keep this series more what do you call it, segmented. So we're going to be doing, there's 3 years to cover, 2019, 2022, and 2023, and we're going to be doing a video apiece for direct and cross. So we'll be back tomorrow night with the cross-examination from Mr. Hand Grenade, which I don't know, might be quite short. So maybe we'll do both crosses. Tara Kawas, I think, does the cross for Katie this year. And more comments. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't leave that up very long. Rabbit says Tato is used for a nickname like daddy or grandfather. Luis Rivera was born into the Latin Kings. He was a legacy member going back generations. Yeah, and what's all this stuff about him being the boss of the North Miami faction of the Latin Kings at age 15? What kind of shit is that? That doesn't happen, you know, unless it's a kid gang. You think a 15-year-old kid is gonna like be in charge of gangsters in their 40s? That's stupid. I mean, he might have been high up because of his uncles and, you know, whatever, but maybe he was a figurehead. I don't know, to take the hits, to take the heat off the real bosses. But yeah, not really so much to unpack in Georgia Cappleman's direct there. It was good. It was good. It's nice to listen to, and I think the most interesting thing about Rivera's testimony is how well he comes across. I mean, I don't think anyone is watching this looking at him and going, "You evil bastard, how could you kill Professor Markel?" I mean, yeah, okay, he's a bad guy. And he's you know, a crook and a gangster. But look at the Adelsons and what they do, not just with the murder, but in all of their money schemes and profiteering off the backs of the poor, you know, stepping over the, you know, the less fortunate to make themselves, to, you know, just to inflate their wealth. And, you know, anyone that they have to step over, it's just, it's nothing to them, you know. And this guy, Rivera's actually shown us some decency, you know, shown us some moral fiber. A limit. He's got a limit. Not going to do it in front of the kids. Not because I was told to or I wouldn't get paid. I'm just not going to do it. Even if I lose the job. I mean, for a gangster, that's about as much as you can ask for, right? Plus, if he hadn't have come forward and made this deal, would all of the convictions have happened? Well, maybe, yeah. But it certainly helped. Maybe Katie could have got off. Maybe Charlie could have got off. I think Sigfredo was pretty done either way, even with Mr. Hand Grenade's defense. I mean, Mr. Hand Grenade is quite funny because it's almost like he has no legal training whatsoever. He's just sort of guessing. But he's got a few good things that I think he did well, and you know, with what he had to work with, yeah, try and come up with something better. Yeah, Caledonian Celt, you're on my time, man. Same time zone. Okay, Leslie's out tomorrow. That's cool. Maybe we shouldn't do one tomorrow. How many do you think we should do a week, guys? I wanted to try and get as many in as possible before next Monday because of the Sarah Boone trial. We're going to be changing up the channel a little. Maybe we're going to do a mix of some, you know, live footage from the trial as it's coming out. I don't think it'll be a very long trial. There's really not much to be said, but if Sarah testifies, that should be very good value. And we might mix it up with looking back at some of the historical interviews. You know, it's what, 4 years, 4 or 5 years. I think it's 4 years she's been inside waiting. You know, writing these ridiculous letters to the judge, sacking her attorneys. She's been through what, 7 or 8 attorneys. They all leave her saying, "We can't work with this person. She's nuts. Let us go. Release us." So it should be a good trial. Oh, thank you, Niti. You're too kind. Rabbit says Luis Rivera went on second trip for the dollars. He had just had a baby girl who had a heart condition. I think that's what it was, and he needed a lot of dollars for the baby. Well, yeah. I mean, he seemed to spend a lot on himself, though. I mean, he bought a motorcycle. What does that cost? Like maybe $5,000, and a Camry. I think he bought a watch. You know, some bling. Got to get some bling, some Latin King bling. Yeah, domestic coordinator Donna. I am a domestic coordinator? I mean, what is that? Why don't you just say homemaker or housewife? You know, you've got to make it sound like a really important executive role. I am a domestic coordinator. Unbelievable. You know, the fragile ego of these people, because they're not old money like Amy Adler. House in the Hamptons, famous fashion designer brother. I mean, do you really think Wendy was going to let Dan move on to someone like that? Revered law professor at New York University with tenure and all the rest of it. Wendy would have become insignificant. A crazy time in Dan's life that he couldn't be happier not to be a part of. There is no way that the Adelson ego, the collective ego of the Adelsons, would let that happen. It had to be taken out. Oh, Mary Bartlett doesn't know the case. Oh, it's fantastic. It's the one where Sarah gets drunk and puts her boyfriend in a suitcase and then throws the suitcase down the stairs, probably, and films herself. Well, films the suitcase, but she's talking in the background saying, "This is what it's like when you cheat on me. And this is what it's like when you choke me." And he's saying, "I can't breathe. Let me out." And she's just like, "That's on you." And then goes to bed and wakes up 12 hours later, drunk, still drunk. And he's dead and purple in the case. And she has a ridiculous interview with police and is arrested for the murder. So, yeah, we might do a little introduction video before the start of the excuse me, trial, before the start of the trial. But I think the video streaming quality is a bit better, guys, a bit less shaky. Hopefully the audio is good too. We are going to be getting our microphone soon. So remember to all subscribe to the channel because we are so close. Oh, thanks, Rabbit. You're so encouraging, Rabbit. And Mary. And Ian. And the whole gang. What a team we've got here, guys. It's like an army. An army for justice. Anyway, guys, we're going to be picking it up tomorrow with Mr. Hand Grenade's cross-examination of Luis Rivera 2019. Should be good. We might run straight into the cross-examination for the Magbanoa side of things. So we'll see you there. Have a great night. Be kind to each other. Be dignified. Don't be an Adelson. and love and peace all. Good night.